you're looking to engage the customers, the viewers less through narrative and more through, kind of their engage with them emotionally, the sense of wonder. What are you? What's your
Yeah, I think that's true because I mean I don't really have quite the same kind of mind as say a Paul Spooner or someone like that who's like looking for like human moments and trying to reproduce them. Most of the way I think about movement is more conceptual. It's more like what is this kind of movement telling us, as opposed to how can I tell the story through movement? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, in a way, your washer piece, you were talking about how you hate to see the mechanics hidden. That piece becomes about the mechanics.
Right.
And so,
Right.
So the very idea of it is this beautiful mechanics process. So in a way, it sort of is very meta.
Right, and occasionally, I mean, there is a pretty clear storyline. I mean, for like a Tantalus mackerel piece, which was here a few years ago, there's another little fish piece that's trying to catch a bug, and it doesn't ever quite catch the bug, and so there's a real cyclical storyline there that's very clear. That also is really about the mechanics, because the mechanics are telling the story at the same time the story is being told. And so it's not only about the story that's being told, but it's about the way the story is being told and the mechanics that are telling the story, if that makes sense, you know what I mean? So it's, I try not to think about things just from the point of view of the storyline, but rather all the various storylines that are going back into the mechanics as well.
So maybe can you talk a bit about when you see somebody engage with your art, what's a memorable reaction you've had to someone viewing your art, engaging with your art?
I mean, it happens all the time. I think for all of us, whenever you put motion into a piece of artwork, people engage with it almost like we're like genetically predisposed or evolutionarily predisposed to react to motion. I think it's kind of an adaptive strategy, an evolutionary adaptive strategy. We're attracted to motion. So it's not hard to elicit kind of fun reactions from people when we're always like, oh, this is good. But that's why I do it too, because I like to see things move.
Sure.
Your stuff, John, is like, it's sort of a two-step thing, because other people will take what you've built and then enhance it or produce it. So what is that like? Because my thing is immediate. Either they laugh or not, or they just look at it and go, huh? But that's really interesting. And how do people take what you built for them and then, I don't know, modify it? Or
Well, they take it and usually they enhance it by bringing their own personality and own ideas to it, and makes it a better product, so to speak. And I, in turn, in order to build that thing in the first place, I was, of course, influenced by other magicians' things, so it all kind of comes and goes together.
Is some of what you do, because I know so much of magic sort of relies on humans' ability to sort of think of two things at the same time, simultaneously.
Yes.
And so does that have an effect on what you build mechanically then for people? I mean, do you rely on that inability of humans to, watch this hand and this hand simultaneously?
Well, as a builder of magicians' things, I guess you're supposed to be aware of all of that, but the people that come to me, they kind of know what they want to do with this thing and how they want to present it, even though once you get it, it's such a compromise, the reality of it in the beginning and the final product as he walks out on stage, you're always two different animals. So it's all a learning process, and the good ones continue to build upon what they first started with.
Can I make a suggestion about something to watch?
Sure.
Just a little bit on this topic. There's a little animation of a couple of my pieces that a friend of mine did. Let's see if we can go to, it's like 3 pieces in Fond de Poire.
Is it on your?
Yeah, it should be. If you can go down, just scroll down a bit. Go down, more. Ah, there, 3 pieces. Yeah. So this is a little. Pause it for a second. This is a little animation. Sorry. That is done. Just to give you a little introduction here. This is actually 2 sculptures I made a while ago, based on some stop motion animation armatures an armature system that I invented. The idea is that you can, they're called posabiles. I call them posabiles because they're basically little abstract sculptures that you can pose in different orientations, just to give them different character. And they're totally abstract, and you know, they can take on different forms as you like. I have a friend who's an animator also, and I suggested to her she should make a little animation with these, and I suggested a piece of music, and then she took this and made this wonderful animation based on these 2 pieces, which kind of brought them to life and created a little story line that wasn't there before. So, you can sort of see that. That's sort of an example of a piece that exists now that didn't exist before, but is only exists in the form of an animation. You know, but taking a sculpture and turning it into an animation.
Okay, thanks. Why don't we maybe take some questions from the audience? If we have any questions for the panel?
I have a question.
Okay.
On that we see the stop frame and your craftsmanship and doing all that, but then beyond that, what is not seen is the editing it must have taken to put it with the music, and that must have taken as much energy as building the product.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you. The stop motion is a very time-consuming art form.
It has to be.
Yeah, because you're, I mean, she, broke up the piece of, you start with a piece of music, you break it up, and you time out the key frames, and you try to get your, she had to sort of figure out what she wanted to do with the music and how to tell that story over that period of time, and how to use the pieces to express the musical ideas in that little piece of music. So yeah, there's a whole art form there that's layered on top of the sculpture itself.
Well, the next question, of course, is did you conceive the music first or the animation first?
So the music.
Okay.
And in general, you know, in stop motion animation, you start with the soundtrack because you're timing your animation to the soundtrack.
Huh?
Yeah, so you break down the soundtrack to very small segments, sometimes down to vowel sounds.
Yeah, that's a world we never see.
Right. And you know, we're seeing it less and less. I think you were talking a little bit about Disney replacing some of the animatronics with just projections.
Yes.
And of course, you know, video killed the radio star, right? It's the same story with stop motion animation, computer animation. Are basically computer animation, along with the internet bust in 2000, kind of brought down the animation studio I used to work in, and a lot of others like it. So there are very few real stop motion animation houses anymore that are still active.
But there are some stop motion films still being made, right? Although I think they're maybe incorporating technology more with sort of like moving the pieces and then recording the position of the pieces and things like that.
Yeah, I think, it's funny, Elizabeth and I were just talking about this a little bit. I think I have not actually stayed up to date in terms of the available technology these days as animation tools for stop motion animation have become more sophisticated. So yeah, there is a little bit of a, you know, hybrid technology where you're using computer technology to help you do this sort of old style,
Yeah, we were talking
old
about
style,
that.
stop motion stuff, you know, stuff. It's kind of backwards in a certain kind of.
We were talking about that in our makers panel yesterday, how we were talking about using C machines and laser cutters to create gears that looked like they were, you know, from an old device, right, or old technology, and the sort of irony of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, you know, these hybrid models are probably the way of the future, right? You want to carry forward some of these things that we learned from the mechanical era and see how technology can augment them. Just like some of the you know, Hollywood directors today aren't going completely CGI. They're merging CGI with you know, with practical effects, and you know, sometimes the illusion there is, you know, is this CGI or is it practical? And then things, everybody assumes now it's CGI, and then you watch behind the scenes and you find out it was actually a practical effect. You know, someone in makeup or something. So I think there's you know, probably room for both, and I think people will use both kinds of things in these kind of hybrid ways.
Yeah.
Going forward.
Yeah, the best of both worlds is, you know, they could both be great, very useful.
Have some questions from the audience? Yes?
I have a question for John. I followed your column in Genie magazine, the Chamber of Secrets, for a number of years. And I was curious, is there an Autonoma one related, like the Hooker Rising cards or the Balsamo Skull, I think was one, but one that got away from you, from Magic History, that's sort of Autonoma related?
Well, you mean one we hadn't included yet?
Well, no, I mean one that we don't know how it was done, and it was like destroyed by whoever made it way back when, but it's known to history, and we just don't know anything more about it. Like a more famous one.
Any historical mysteries? And
Yeah, there's
Autonoma?
always a list of those types of things, but the mystery is more, well, we know what the effect is, but you're right, how it got to that effect and what the mechanics were. Sometimes when I see a piece that in my mind I built it up to be some wonderful brass clockwork thing, and it's just a rubber band and a string. It takes the fun out of it.
Oh, that doesn't take the fun out of it.
You mentioned one of the other pieces that there were humans involved, like under the table or something.
Yes.
Was that common? Because I know that the chess
pretty much,
that
yes,
was, right? The chess guy who played, I mean, that was all.
Well, at least in my area, there's so much of magic illusion that is purely the magician's sleight of hand and everything. But you get more into the stage illusions and the enhanced by whatever means that can. What?
I was thinking about the Bolsano skull actually, and wondering, is that actually just an automaton that has a timed mechanism in it, and the pattern is just all timed?
Yes.
Okay.
But this Balsamo is a skull made by a man named Giuseppe Freud, around 1906, and he was a electromechanical guy, and he was actually building stuff for the phone company back then. And an amateur magician, he used to go to local meetings of the Magic Club. Someone presented a skull one night that moved its head this way, not this way, back and forth, and clicked the answers like, how old is your child? Balsamo will know, and then he clicks 8 times, and oh my gosh, it's a miracle. And there is a guy off stage pulling a string 8 times. Well, Giuseppe thought it would be better if the skull was predetermined and the magician had to memorize everything and say it, a half second beforehand. And so he built this piece that you gotta see, because there are 4 separate motors inside the head, and all they do is do this and click, click. But one motor tells the next motor when to do all of these things, much like a modern day computer. And so there's a whole bunch of story how I got this thing, but we think that maybe when Giuseppe turned on Balsamo on stage, because he put it on a glass table and then walk out in the audience, and about 2 minutes and 10 seconds later, he would turn around and say, Balsamo, are you with us this evening? And Balsamo would go over to where he is and click yes or no. And we think that he had a duplicate timer in his pocket. It just hit him right before.
Yeah, amazing.
Because, boy.
How do you do it?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But when we presented it, we didn't have that, and we had a wonderful magician named Max Maiden perform it, and he did memorize it.
Wow. Amazing.
Any other questions from the audience?
Do you feel the appeal of AutomataCon today for all of us is due to the fact that we are so inundated, overwhelmed with boxes that do everything? And so now all of a sudden we can see the mechanics and the magic of levers and gears and cams and pawls moving around, and that's the thrill that we get to watch. Do you think that's part of that is the main appeal of these kind of things?
I think it would probably be selling the artist short to say that that's the main appeal, because I think every artist has, ways that they, or, something they want to tell the viewer and engage with them. I think that's certainly an aspect to it, and I think as we become, as I said, more of a digital world, people kind of hearken back to to mechanical things, and that becomes the wondrous thing. So it's certainly an element to it. But I think if you go look at the Kinetic, exhibit here, the modern Kinetic exhibit, there's just all sorts of ways that the artists are kind of engaging with you and emotions that they're trying to enact. And so I think there's lots of different kind of ways you could look at it. Any other comments?
I think that's why a lot of us are here today, is to see all these things move up and around.
Yeah.
A lot of us are retiring too and have time on our hands.
That's true.
I guess I would say that I think, motion has always been interesting to humans, and even when, when very early automata were being made, they were fascinating even back then. So I think it's just, I think it's just kind of a human thing.
Yeah. Yes.
It seems like one thing that the different approaches in art share is, on the one hand, the artist's desire to deceive, and on the other hand, the audience's desire to be deceived.
Sure.
And within that agreement, there's a world of pleasure and challenge and even disturbance that I think is a big part of what drama is.
I would say that, I'm not sure I would use the word deceive, but they say maybe challenge. Like the artists are interested in challenging the audience, and the audience is interested in being challenged. So it's puts a little bit of a spin on that, I guess.
Yeah, I think it maybe depends on what, certainly in magic and the traditional automatons where they're trying to recreate the illusion of life, there's certain deception, right, where you're inviting them into this sort of fantasy world where this is a living creature, right, and so you're inviting the audience to participate in that fantasy that you've recreated, essentially.
I think another appeal to making automata is that if you have any level of ADHD, you are basically pulling from multiple disciplines. So you're pulling a little bit from woodworking and from mechanical design and from industrial design and, God help me, from electronics. So you never have to, if you get bored with doing one thing, you can actually go over to your saw and do that. So I find that interesting.
Maybe one more question? In the back?
Chris, your piece that is a face in the show here,
Yeah, the
is
man
that
with pipe.
purely mechanical or is there an electronics in that?
The man with pipe piece? Yeah, I think, that's made of, it's made of like old piano and organ and sewing machine parts, basically, mostly.
But
And actually, that piece started because I had, somewhere I had found in an old organ factory, some like little testing board for valves, and it had these giant old solenoids on it. And I got this thing, and I just started playing around with it, and this is one of these examples of a piece that kind of built itself over time. One thing just kind of led to another, and I said, well, what does this want to be? And it gradually told me what it wanted to be. I'm not sure I'm answering your question though.
but it's mechanical and not electronic.
Well, it's not electronic, no. It's I would say it's electromechanical.
Yeah, but it's not electronic.
Not electronic.
Controlling the movement.
No, it's all just switches.
Yeah.
Yeah, switches and solenoids and motors and a motor.
Okay. All right. Any last thoughts, last questions? Otherwise, I will. I could stay up here all day probably and talk with this group, but I want to give everybody a chance to maybe run out and get some food before the next set of panels start at 1. But anyway, thank you all for coming.